Imagine you're trying to throw a party, but the neighbor you hate has a giant no trespassing sign and a high-end security system with motion-activated turrets. You can't just walk in. To do anything, you first have to own the backyard. In the world of modern warfare, that backyard is the sky, and the security system is a network of radars and missiles. When a country declares a no-fly zone, NFZ, they aren't just putting up a digital keep out sign. They are making a high-stakes bet that they can physically stop anything with wings or rotors from existing in that space. It sounds simple. Just shoot down anything that flies. But in reality, it is one of the most expensive, logistically nightmarish, and technically complex math problems humans have ever tried to solve. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar sky wall that requires thousands of people, 24/7 surveillance, and a specific type of violence called seed, just to keep the lights on. If you are interested in this kind of videos, consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, like this video, and share to loved ones. Now, let's begin. What is a no-fly zone? A no-fly zone is a specific piece of airspace where certain aircraft are prohibited from flying. Usually, it's established by a powerful military over a less powerful one to protect people on the ground or to stop the enemy from moving troops. But here's the blunt truth. An NFZ is an act of war. You can't just politely enforce one. To make it work, you have to be willing to kill anyone who breaks the rules. If a cargo plane full of medicine that might actually be missiles ignores your warning, you have to shoot it down. If you don't, your NFZ is just a suggestion. And in geopolitics, suggestions are for losers. The running example. For this breakdown, we're looking at the 2026 Middle East lockdown. Imagine the US and Israel have declared a massive NFZ over Western Iran to stop missile launches. We're going to track how they maintain this sky wall against a country that actually has its own high-end radars and long-range missiles. This isn't like policing a desert. It's like trying to hold a door shut while a professional powerlifter is trying to kick it in. Air superiority. You can't have a no-fly zone without air superiority. This is the God mode of the sky. It means your air force is so dominant that the enemy can't interfere with your operations. Think of it like a gym where one guy is so massive and intimidating that nobody else dares to use the squat rack while he's there. If you don't have air superiority, your enforcement planes, the ones patrolling the zone, will just get picked off by enemy fighters. Air superiority is the foundation. Without it, the sky wall is made of cardboard. Seed, kicking the door. Before you can even start a no-fly zone in our 2026 Middle East lockdown, you have to do something called SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. In the industry, this is known as kicking down the door. You can't fly patrols if there are S-400 missile batteries on the ground waiting to turn your $100 million jet into a firework. SEAD missions involve specialized wild Weasel pilots whose entire job is to fly toward enemy radar, wait for the enemy to lock on to them, and then fire a missile that homes in on that radar signal to blow it up. It's a game of chicken played at Mach 1.5. IADS, the neural network. The enemy doesn't just have random missiles. They have an IADS, an integrated air defense system. This is a neural network of sensors, radars, and command centers. If you blow up one radar, 3 others see you and share your location instantly. In the 2026 Middle East lockdown, Iran's IADS is the main boss. To maintain the NFZ, the US and Israel have to constantly jam this network using electronic warfare. They use planes like the EA-18G Growler to flood the enemy's brain with digital noise, making them see 1,000 ghost planes instead of the real ones. Sorties and staggering. Maintaining an NFZ isn't a one-time event. It's a 24/7 grind. You can't just leave a jet up there forever. They run out of fuel, the pilots get tired, and the engines need parts. This is handled through sorties, single missions from takeoff to landing. To keep the 2026 Middle East lockdown active, you need a staggered schedule. While Flight A is patrolling, Flight B is refueling, and Flight C is on the deck of a carrier getting its 8 million lines of code updated. If there's even a 15-minute gap in the schedule, the enemy will sneak a drone or a transport plane through. Aerial refueling, the lifeline. This is the part nobody sees in the movies. Modern fighters like the F-35 only have a combat radius of about 600 to 700 miles. If your base is in Cyprus or a carrier in the Arabian Sea, you spend half your fuel just getting to the no-fly zone. To stay on station, you need tankers, massive flying gas stations like the KC-46. In our 2026 Middle East lockdown, these tankers are the most vulnerable part of the system. If a missile hits a tanker, 4 F-35s suddenly become very expensive gliders that will eventually have to crash land in the desert. CAP, the bouncers. Once the door is kicked down and the tankers are in place, you set up a CAP, a combat air patrol. These are the bouncers of the sky. They fly in patterns, usually racetrack loops at different altitudes. Their job is simple: identify anything that moves. Using AESA radar, an F-35 can see a bird-sized drone from 100 miles away. In the 2026 Middle East lockdown, the CAP is constantly painting the sky with sensors, making sure no low and slow drones are trying to hug the terrain to avoid detection. Rules of engagement, ROE. This is where it gets psychological. You can't just shoot everything. What if a civil airliner from a neutral country, like India or Turkey, wanders into the zone because their GPS glitched? The ROE are the terms of service for the sky. The pilots have to follow a specific flowchart. 1. Radio warning. 2. Visual intercept. Fly up next to them and wiggle wings. 3. Warning shots. 4. Lethal force. In the 2026 Middle East lockdown, the enemy will often use human shields in the sky, flying civilian-looking planes close to military assets to dare you to shoot. It's a game of high-speed chicken. Stealth, the ghost factor. In a modern NFZ, being invisible is better than being fast. Stealth aircraft like the F-22 and F-35 don't show up as planes on old-school radar. They show up as noise or a golf ball. This allows the enforcers of the 2026 Middle East lockdown to sit inside the enemy's backyard without the enemy even knowing they are being watched. This persistent intelligence is the ultimate flex. Imagine being the neighbor with the turrets and realizing there's a guy standing in your kitchen holding a shotgun and you didn't even hear the front door open. The drone problem. It's 2026, and the biggest headache for an NFZ isn't other jets. It's $20,000 suicide drones. These things are small, made of plastic, and fly very low. They don't put out much heat, so infrared missiles struggle to find them. In the 2026 Middle East lockdown, the U.S. has to use directed energy, lasers, or high-volume electronic jamming to stop swarms of these drones. If one $20,000 drone slips through and hits a $2 billion aircraft carrier, the skywall looks like a joke. The math of war is shifting toward the cheap and the many. Logistics, the hidden war. An F-35 requires about 1,500 specific spare parts per year. In a high-intensity conflict like the 2026 Middle East lockdown, that number spikes. You need a constant bridge of C-17 cargo planes bringing in engines, tires, and cooling fluid from factories in Texas or Israel. If a single specialized bolt isn't available, that jet sits on the ground. Maintaining an NFZ is less about Top Gun dogfights and more about Amazon-style supply chain management. If the prime delivery of parts stops, the sky falls. AWACS, the eye in the sky. Individual jets have limited vision. To run a whole zone, you need an AWACS, an airborne warning and control system.
Imagine you're trying to throw a party, but the neighbor you hate has a giant no trespassing sign and a high-end security system with motion-activated turrets. You can't just walk in. To do anything, you first have to own the backyard.
In the world of modern warfare, that backyard is the sky, and the security system is a network of radars and missiles. When a country declares a no-fly zone, NFZ, they aren't just putting up a digital keep out sign. They are making a high-stakes bet that they can physically stop anything with wings or rotors from existing in that space. It sounds simple. Just shoot down anything that flies. But in reality, it is one of the most expensive, logistically nightmarish, and technically complex math problems humans have ever tried to solve. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar sky wall that requires thousands of people, 24/7 surveillance, and a specific type of violence called seed, just to keep the lights on.